So for the final part of our California road trip, we had 5 nights in a fantastic beach house on Mission Beach, and we did so much when we were in San Diego.
I feel like we did everything in San Diego, apart from one thing.
Yeah, we didn't do SeaWorld, just because we're not completely convinced that we agree with their philosophy. I know they've improved a lot, but it wasn't something that we wanted to do on this trip. But in our vlog, you're going to see the Whaley House, you're going to see Old Town San Diego, the USS Midway. We did lots of things.
Absolutely everything that is on most people's San Diego bucket list we did, so come along with us.
Our first full day in San Diego was a Sunday, which meant we could park for free in the streets around downtown. So we headed down to Seaport, had an explore and a wander, and then headed to the USS Midway.
We had pre-booked our tickets via the Go City San Diego Pass, which allowed us 5 choices of things to do. This was the first one we chose, and you can go online to their website right now and have a look at the deals that might be on offer. At the USS Midway, there's a separate entrance for Go City people, like we were, and we were soon through the gates and up the stairs onto the Midway itself.
Once on board, you're given a complimentary audio tour, which is really good. It has lots of information, and we really felt this enhanced our visit.
However, I did have a huge problem with my audio tour, which we'll get to a bit later. The tour itself follows a loop, and there's signs all around to show you exactly where to go and exactly the order in which to see different parts of the aircraft carrier.
With hindsight, I wish we'd been there first thing in the morning, as it was quite busy in the afternoon. So if you do have a choice of times, I would definitely pick an earlier slot, so it's not as crowded, because the walkways throughout the aircraft carrier are rather narrow and did get a little congested at times. However, this didn't stop our enjoyment.
The aircraft carrier has been pretty much left as it was when it was decommissioned a couple decades ago, and there's still uniforms hanging up. There are displays showing you exactly how things would have been when the aircraft carrier itself was in service.
The living quarters on board are really interesting, and it's astonishing to think that so many brave men and women worked and lived on board this massive carrier.
As we were going through this rather cramped section of living quarters, I started to realize that my audio tour was actually in Chinese. I hadn't been using the audio tour up to that point, and I was quite disappointed. There wasn't anyone along the way to change it. I had to wait until I was back in the actual hangar itself for them to give me a new one.
On the main deck, there are a few virtual reality flight simulators that you can participate in for an extra charge. These looked fun. They were really busy at the time, so we didn't do them, and I'm not sure we would have coped with the motion sickness that well as well, so we gave it a miss.
Up on the top deck, you actually see the expanse of the aircraft carrier itself, how big it is, and you also get some rather stunning views of San Diego itself. The skyline's fantastic up there, and if you're a real plane spotter, you're well served. All in all, it was a really enjoyable few hours we spent on the USS Midway, and right outside,
you find the Kissing Sailor statue, which is 25 feet tall and weighs 6,000 pounds. It's actually called Unconditional Surrender, and it's by J. Seward Johnson, who designed or created the Marilyn statue in Palm Springs. If you haven't seen our vlog on Palm Springs, we'll leave a link in the description below.
another must-see in San Diego is the world-famous San Diego Zoo. Now, we were here on Christmas Day, all day, and it was also part of the Go City Pass. So The price we paid for the Go City Pass included the USS Midway, San Diego Zoo, and any other 3 things that we wanted.
There are different levels of Go City Pass. We had the Explorer Pass. You can get an all-inclusive pass, which includes a lot more. But we knew we didn't have a ton of time and we had certain things we wanted to see, so the Explorer Pass worked for us.
After a surprisingly satisfying merch shop at the San Diego Zoo, we went for the first thing, and we recommend doing this first thing when you arrive in the morning, which is the bus tour. The lines for this actually get longer as the day goes on, so you're best to jump on it first thing, and the lower deck tends to have shorter lines than the upper deck. So we went for the lower.
And naturally, Tony bought himself a string of lights, which is his theme park staple, along with sipper cups. Basically, he likes to look like a Christmas tree wherever he goes.
For the record, I actually bought a sipper cup too, more on that later, but as you can see, the windows and the sides of the bus are quite open, so you can get a good view really wherever you are, although it's understandable why people would prefer the top deck as it's a bit warmer. It was a bit chilly this morning. Going around the park, you can see the lights here, which are set up for Christmas, and you can get a good look at some of the animals, like this tiger.
Really, Tony? I think people can tell that's a tiger.
Along the way on the bus tour, we spotted the cable cars, which we'll get to in a minute. After touring the San Diego Zoo on the ground with the bus tour, it was time to take to the skies for the cable cars, or the Skyfari, as it's called.
This is a free activity and there wasn't really much of a wait when we did it. It goes continuously, as you can see. They are probably not great if you're afraid of heights, as they're not completely closed in the whole way round.
Not only was it really cool to see the San Diego Zoo from up on high, it was really great to look around at San Diego, and it made us really excited for exploring the rest of the city throughout our stay.
The Skyfari brings you back to pretty much the entrance of the park, and not far from the entrance you'll find the Wildlife Wonders Theatre, which we stopped and watched the show. It was very cute, had a bit of a Christmas theme as well, as it was the holidays.
It was great seeing some of these animals close up in the show, but it was off to the Australian outback next to see Beth's favorite, as you're about to tell from the look on her face, koalas.
Koalas sleep pretty much all the time, so they say it's best to see them at dusk when they get a bit active and they're probably going to eat. So yeah, we went over, we timed it just right. We just, as you just saw, a koala just jump. Here's another one, eating some eucalyptus leaves. Apparently all they do all day is sleep or eat eucalyptus leaves.
Sadly, we didn't see any baby koalas at the San Diego Zoo, but we did see baby other things, like this orangutan, which was so cute. and more babies. All in all, we had a really enjoyable day at the San Diego Zoo, but as the sun started to go down, we had an idea.
Yes, we got in our hire car and we made our way over the Coronado Bridge to Coronado Island, where we thought we would watch the sunset as a nice way to finish Christmas Day.
Coronado Island is a great place from what we could tell. It was mostly closed as it was Christmas Day, but it's a wonderful, quaint little island off the San Diego coastline. And we understand the best place to catch the sunset on Coronado Island is at the Hotel del Coronado, which you can't miss. That's where we were headed. Sadly, as we were about to find out, we weren't the only ones with that idea.
The Hotel Del, as it's affectionately called, is said to be the inspiration for Disney's Grand Floridian, and we could certainly see the similarities.
As a Michigander, it also reminds me of the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. If you've been to the Grand Hotel Mackinac Island or to Disney's Grand Floridian, leave a comment in the comment section below.
The hotel and its grounds are absolutely stunning, as is its location right on the beach. However, it was so busy.
It was busy, but as you can see, the beach is huge and more than big enough to take large crowds, even at sunset.
As well as the main hotel building, there are these really lovely little beach houses that you can rent. However, they are very expensive. And I'm not sure I would actually want to stay here. The reason being is it gets so busy with people coming and having a look around that I don't know if the price tag is worth it.
You can also hire these little beach igloos, which look a lot of fun.
There is also a very famous ice rink that's out every holiday season. As we've already said, you don't need to be staying at the Hotel Del to explore. You can eat at the restaurant, or you can go inside and browse the shops, have a look at the interior gardens.
Yeah, and just generally take in the vibe of the place, which at Christmas time was probably the most Christmassy place that we found in San Diego.
Here's the interior courtyard garden that I was talking about earlier, and as you can see, a lot of the rooms overlook the courtyard, and it's just so busy with people looking around. I don't know how I would feel about staying there.
I certainly wouldn't say no if anyone wanted to offer me a free room, but I agree with Beth. Overall though, because visiting the hotel is free, it's well worth the price and worth a visit, especially at sunset. But as exciting as San Diego Zoo is in the day, at nighttime, particularly during the Christmas period, it's even cooler.
Yes, there's lots going on after the sun goes down. There were interactive acts, music, dance parties that kids could take part in, and the actual lights are stunning. It's worth it just to have a look around at the lighting. They also have a show called the Aurora Show, which we wanted to see.
The Aurora Show, or general admission for the Aurora Show, is included within your ticket to the San Diego Zoo. However, there is an upgrade possible for VIP sections should you wish to do that.
I should add that it's possible to leave the zoo and come back as we did. You just need to get your hand stamped on the way out and show them when you come back.
As you can see at the very bottom of the park, down by the Chinese restaurant, there is a space for people to congregate and to watch this wonderful show.
And shaped by winds. And home to fanciful creatures such as these. The captain of the water domain. She harnesses the power of water and is a steward of the realm.
Sorry, trying to go up the hill.
The Empress of the Winds. Her magic creates beauty in the sky. The nature sprites realized if they worked together, they could magnify their power and create true beauty.
As cool as the Aurora Light Show was, it didn't quite compare to other theme parks like Disneyland or Disney World in terms of the projection mapping and in terms of the overall story that was being told. But it was really great, especially for a zoo.
The next morning, we did another one of our free activities in San Diego, and this is one that I was really looking forward to. Whenever we go to California, we're always blown away by the wildlife, and I was desperate to go to La Jolla to see the sea lions, and just to be by the coast, really. It's so stunning.
La Jolla is not centrally located in San Diego. It was about a 15-minute drive from where we were staying.
In fact, where we were staying in Mission Beach was pretty much a 15 to 20-minute drive to anywhere in San Diego. So again, we're really pleased we chose it as a location to base ourselves and highly recommend it.
Yeah, it was an ideal location. As you approach the cove, and if you can stay away from the unstable cliffs, the first thing you'll come across, or the first thing we came across, was the seals.
This is what is known as the children's pool or the children's beach, and these seals come here to give birth and keep their babies. We didn't see any babies though, as it wasn't really the season.
A few hundred yards down the coastline, there's amazing parks in La Jolla. San Diego really excels in its greenery and parks. And then we come across our next wildlife experience, which was pelicans.
Yep, we love the pelicans, and not far from the pelicans, we saw our first sea lions.
may go without saying for a lot of you watching, especially if you're from California or been to California. For those of you who haven't, these sea lions and the seals are naturally occurring. They are not kept in captivity. They are not encouraged to be here by any humans. This is just where they like to hang out. And I found myself asking, how do they get up on those rocks if they don't have legs? And I was about to find out from this little guy.
Alongside the sea lions and the pelicans, there were also these birds. If you know what they're called, please let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, and that's not clickbait. We genuinely don't know what they're called, but they are beautiful with the little blue bit underneath their beaks.
After we left the sea lions, we went for a walk around the coastline, which was really lovely, stopped for a coffee in the town of La Jolla, and generally had a really lovely time. I should add that parking was free for us. Again, we found a spot on the street where we could park for a few hours free of charge. So far on our trip in San Diego, we hadn't actually had to pay for any parking anywhere, which is really good for a major US city.
And quite obviously, we did not park in the caves at La Jolla. All in all, La Jolla is a beautiful, fairly modern part of San Diego, which would be amazing to live in, definitely amazing to visit.
Yeah, I think staying in La Jolla would be something I'd really like to do if we went back, well, when we get back to San Diego.
But if you're looking for something a bit more rustic, why not hit the Old Town in San Diego?
We really enjoyed our time wandering around the Old Town. It's actually a state park, and it's the very, very first settlement of San Diego. So lots of history if you're interested in history, and particularly the history of California.
To be honest, I really didn't know what to expect. I hadn't read or watched anything much about Old Town, and I was taken aback by the Old West, almost pioneer vibe of the place, as well as how heavily Mexican it was. Obviously, this part of California was once called Baja California and was once part of Mexico.
Again, we were lucky enough to find a parking space for free in the streets around Old Town, but there are also places you can park, and the parking charges aren't too expensive, which is really good for a major tourist destination.
You can also take public transportation as the trolley stops right outside of Old Town.
We had originally planned to use the Old Town trolley as part of our city pass, but in the end we found it so easy to drive around and visit the places on our own that we ended up not using it. But it's a really good way to see the sights, particularly if you've not got very long in San Diego.
You don't need any transport once you're in Old Town though. The entire place is completely walkable and it's flat for anyone with accessibility needs. Speaking of needs, Beth couldn't help herself at this one souvenir spot, and she bought herself a raccoon.
Oh, but this isn't any raccoon, this is a finger raccoon. I mean, how cool is that?
As it was Christmas time, in the Mexican courtyard at Old Town, they were having Fiesta de Reyes, which is the Mexican version of Christmas, and there were decorations and sculptures and live music and dancing and food and everything you could possibly imagine. It was fantastic. So in general, Beth, what were your thoughts on Old Town?
I really, really like it. I think it's a really nice place to stop, to shop, to find out a bit more about the history of San Diego and California. It's got great food, it's got great Mexican food. It's also got the Cosmopolitan Hotel, which is incredibly old. I think it's one of the oldest hotels in the United States. We didn't actually go in because we had other things to do, had other plans. But it's very interesting, and just up the road you also have Heritage Park, which I was interested to explore, which has some really lovely old Victorian buildings you can have a wander around and explore.
As with most historic things we found in this part of Southern California, none of it seemed forced. None of it seemed manufactured or plastic. It was all very real and just very well maintained.
Particularly for us coming from the UK, where we're surrounded by history all the time and things are really, really old. Sometimes in the US we find that some of the things don't feel as maybe authentic as they should. But that's not the case here in Heritage Park or in the Old Town. It feels really genuine, really historical, and it's just there for you to explore, very much like Europe is. It's not kind of hidden away, and you don't have to pay fancy expensive charges to visit. It's really good.
We're big fans of Disney and big fans of Disney World, but this was not the Epcot version of Southern California. This was real Southern California history, and it was beautiful. So far in Old Town, we hadn't spent a penny apart from the raccoon, but at the Whaley House, which is just outside of Heritage Park, we were about to do something quite special, at least once the sun went down. We were going to go into America's most haunted house and have a ghost tour.
This is included on the Go City Pass. However, we'd booked the nighttime tour, which wasn't included. We'd actually paid extra for this and booked it before we left the UK, as we knew we wanted to do it, and we wanted to do it in the nighttime.
The reason for this is apparently they focus more on the haunted aspect of America's most haunted house rather than just the history behind it, and there is quite a lot of history. In the evenings, they tend to cover both the supernatural and the normal historical. Now this is a guided tour, thankfully, because I wouldn't want to guide myself through it, and the guides tend to be actors themselves who know a lot about the history of the place. Our guide was called Shep. He was absolutely amazing, and we started here in the makeshift courtroom at the Whaley House, which had many uses, including a general store and a courtroom. Over to you, Shep.
Suffered their fair share of tragedies in this home. The house has been reportedly haunted for quite a while. If anything happens as you go through the house, let me know, right? People get their hair touched. People pick up smells and hear things when we're alone in the house. We are the only ones in the home right now. So if anything weird happens, well, it's not one of the other tours. Now, as you go through, like I said, take your pictures. Just be aware we don't backtrack. So once we move on, we don't come back. So don't miss anything. Don't wait. Take your photos even while I'm still rambling.
Shep was a really, really good guide, and he let our boys open the doors as we led into the new rooms. As you can see, our youngest son wasn't quite so keen to be the first one in, but you go over both levels of the building and you get to hear all about the family history of the Whaley family and some of the terrible things that happened to the residents that lived there, which is why it claims to be so haunted. I should add that we didn't experience anything while we were there that made us feel there was anything supernatural happening, but there were people on our tour who said they did feel people standing behind them and certain things that they felt meant that there was something else going on.
One of the coolest things that Shep told us was actually a local talk show host in the 1960s called Regis Philbin, who you may have heard of, decided to spend the night on camera in the Whaley House to prove that it wasn't haunted. And he lasted about an hour and a half before he left and said he would never come back. Quite interesting.
Overall, we felt it was really worth the money, and I'm really glad we did it in the evening because it was so much more atmospheric than if we'd done it in the day. So definitely something we would recommend if you are in San Diego. The next morning we headed to Balboa Park for a few hours, and this included a visit to the Natural History Museum, which we used as part of our Go City Pass.
We're not hugely into natural history museums per se, but we were starting to run out of things that were actually available on the Go City Pass. We found that at that busy time of year, if we didn't book things weeks and weeks in advance on the Go City Pass, they tended not to be available anymore. Unless you're willing to pay cash, which essentially meant that you were paying double. So, the Natural History Museum it was. It's quite good.
We found the information about California particularly interesting.
Also, some of the exhibits were interactive and a little bit more theatrical than normal, like this tent.
Párale, Michael. I can't. You brought so much stuff in here. No tengo espacio. Sí, hay alacranes all around here, por todos lados. La luz ultravioleta makes them glow in the dark. There's one.
Mira, the black light does make them glow in the dark.
Overall, I think this is a good option if your children are a bit younger than ours. Ours were not quite so interested in doing all the interactive things as they would have been if they had been maybe 5 or 6 years younger. We live about 1 hour from London in the UK, so we have world-class museums on our doorstep and they are for free. So unfortunately the Natural History Museum in San Diego can't compete with the London Natural History Museum as far as we're concerned. But it was a good option. If you've got the all-inclusive City Pass, I'd say it's worth a visit. Parking again was free for us in Balboa Park. We actually did the park and ride. It was busy. But actually not where we were on the park and ride. We managed to get the trolley along to the centre of Balboa Park. So again, free parking in San Diego. Really like that.
About an hour later, we recycled our stickers and left to go into Balboa Park proper, which, again, we're using this word a lot, is completely free. And like most San Diego parks, it does not disappoint. There is an artistic center or an artistic corner of Balboa Park where there are art galleries and people selling sculptures and things like that. Really great place to start our little walking tour of the park. This part of Balboa Park, with its sort of Moorish architecture and open plazas, reminded us a lot of Spain or Portugal or mainland Europe in the way it was set up. It was quite familiar to us and quite nice to be in on a sunny day. We also got on the transport, which is these trolley cars.
These trolley cars go all around Balboa Park, so it was a good way to see some of the other areas that we weren't visiting. It takes you down to the museums, and it also takes you back to the car park.
Obviously, there's plenty of other things to do, like the Air and Space Museum and the San Diego Automotive Museum, and at least once a year, Comic-Con, which happens in San Diego. But we got all we wanted to out of Balboa Park, and it was time to move on further down the hill, into downtown, to the docks, to do something quite special. Across from the County Admin Building, which in itself is something quite nice to look at on the San Diego seafront, you'll find the docks with a wide variety of boats, some of them classic tall ships and some of them more modern. We were going to catch a sunset cruise, which was also included in our Go City Pass with San Diego Go City. We had had lunch in the Little Italy district of San Diego, and that was the only time we'd actually paid to park in San Diego. It was quite expensive because there was a parade on that day for the Holiday Bowl football game. But it was quite walkable from Little Italy down to the pier. The company is called City Cruises, and the ship was called the Adventure Hornblower, and we were about to board. Beth and the kids weren't at all sure about this, and I have to say it was one of our last and only choices that we could make on the Go City Pass this late in our trip, but it actually was quite good, and here's why.
We found a table by an open window, so we had a lovely sea breeze throughout the 90-minute cruise, and it was fantastic to see things that we'd visited from a different angle. The narration and guided information on board was really interesting. We learnt a lot about the naval history of San Diego and the bay itself, and had a really good time.
And more than that, it was relaxing. We had packed so much into our 10 days since we landed at San Diego International, and here you see an Air Alaska flight, if I'm not mistaken, landing on the very narrow strip right past Little Italy in San Diego. We'd packed so much into those 10 days and done so much walking and so much exploring that it was nice to just sit and look at the views and sort of review our trip from a water's edge point of view. It was lovely.
The cruise takes in the length of the bay, and we even got to see some more sea lions.
We also saw part of the active naval base side of San Diego, including the largest hangar in the world. At least that's what the captain said. It was either the largest hangar in the world or had it once been the largest airplane hangar in the world. And Coronado Island, which we know now is also called Admiral's Island due to the high proportion of retired admirals from the US Navy that retire to Coronado Island. They must be on pretty good pensions as well because it's very expensive to buy them.
And who can blame them? It's rather lovely, and I have to say, if I could afford to live on Coronado Island, I think I would.
We also learned an interesting fact about the Coronado Bridge. You will notice, if you look closely, that it is bent. It is not in a straight line. The reason for that is it was a little bit short of the required length to get federal funding as a federally funded and maintained bridge. So to make it a little bit longer, they put this curve into it. That added however many meters was necessary for it to be the right length to get government funding. Very clever, San Diego.
Having worked on cruise ships for many years, we're familiar with dry docks and have spent a couple of dry docks on board cruise ships, so it was interesting to see the dry docks in San Diego for the naval ships.
Also interesting to see Balboa Park, home of the San Diego Padres, from a distance. We'll be going to a Seattle Mariners game in April, and we want you to come along with us on that vlog. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you get a notification when that video goes live sometime in late April or early May. And we're not going to broadcast the entirety of the game, obviously. That would be both boring and illegal. But we are going to do it from the perspective of our children who have never been to a baseball game and have no clue about it. Overall, San Diego is a beautiful city, both close up and at a distance. But there was one more place to visit before we were done.
Our flight back from San Diego to London Heathrow wasn't until the evening, so we checked out of our house on Mission Beach at 11 AM and decided to head up to the Cabrillo National Monument for our final sightseeing of our trip. Now, obviously we had a rental car, so this was easy for us to do. However, there are buses that go up here, so it is accessible on public transport if you need to use it.
Because the monument is at the southernmost tip of the west coast of the US, you get some fantastic views of San Diego and even a little guide to show you what exactly it is you're looking at.
The Cabrillo National Monument is actually a US national park, which I was very excited about because I am keen to visit as many of the national parks as we possibly can. And for a very long time I've wanted to get one of the US national parks passports, and we were able to do this here, and I got my first ever stamp. As you probably know by now, our boys are dual nationality, US and UK, and I thought this was a really nice thing for them to embrace their American heritage. So they both got a national parks passport, and I hope that as they grow older they continue to explore the US and the beautiful national parks in their country and get as many stamps as possible in their passports.
Leaving the visitor center, you have the choice of plenty of different footpaths and trails to follow. They're all paved and they're all signposted really, really clearly. So you can see exactly where you are in relation to the water and exactly what it is that you're going to, like this lighthouse.
San Diego is on the grey whale migration route, and it was just the start of the migration period when we were there. And there are marked areas that they say are really good lookouts for you to spot the grey whales. Unfortunately, we didn't see anything. Maybe if we had binoculars, we would have seen them. But sadly, we didn't see any. We had tried to book a whale watching excursion, which they have on offer through the City Pass, but unfortunately, they were all booked up for the busy time that we were there.
If there's one lesson we learned on this trip, it is that the Go City Pass, which we've used in other places like Copenhagen and New York City, is absolutely worth it and good value for money, provided you book in advance and aren't let down by lack of availability. We only actually used 4 out of our 5 allocated excursions, which was a disappointment.
Entry to the park was $10, which was for the parking, and we could have used that for 14 days, so pretty good value if you're there for a long time. You can also use the National Park's annual pass to visit, which is really worth the money if you're going to be visiting more than one park in the US at any one time.
Overall, I really think we couldn't have got any more out of San Diego than we did. And we actually fit in some time for relaxation as well, which if you watched any of our vlogs previously about the food in San Diego or about our time in Mission Beach, you'll see that we had plenty of time for relaxation and doing nothing. But we saw so much and we did so much. And yet still, I would go back. Would you, Beth?
100%. It is a stunning part of the world. There is so much to see. The food is good. The people are great. The weather is amazing. It's great. It really lives up to the hype. Everyone said visit San Diego, spend some time in San Diego, and I'm so glad we did. And if you get the opportunity to go, don't hesitate. Book those flights. Go to San Diego.
We will definitely be back to San Diego at some point. But first, we've got quite a lot of trips on our docket. First up is our trip to Alaska. Yes, we are flying to Seattle and we're going to take a NCL.
Yep, we're off on the NCL Bliss. We believe it's the very first Alaska cruise of the season of 2024, so you're not going to want to miss that. What is it like in early April? Should you cruise to Alaska that early? We've never been.
No.
We're going to find out.
So don't forget to subscribe, click that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. We'll see you then.
Bye.